Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 182, Quail. The merchants were locked up in the courtyard for 2 days. It was one thing to go without food and water, but it was the lack of latrines and chamber pots that proved to be the most intolerable. They could not hold it in any longer and thought of climbing over the wall to get out. As it turned out, Fei Shen was prepared for this and had his men stand guard at the top of the wall to douse them in the face with several buckets of cold water, subsequently causing an uproar to break out in the courtyard. "What the hell is this? What's wrong with you? You nearly made me piss my pants." Fei Shen had been sitting until his buttocks were aching. He stood up and took several steps before saying, "Piss, huh? You people are the one reeking of it, anyway. It's not my problem." The merchants all held up their pants, their legs shaking from the urgency of their needs. The man who took the lead earlier clung to the crack in the door and put aside his pride to plead, "My good sir, all men surely have to answer the call of nature. Aren't you extorting a confession by doing this?" Fei Shen exclaimed in astonishment and moved closer to the side of the door. "What nonsense are you spouting? I didn't even touch a single finger of yours." This man pressed his legs together and bent over at the waist. Yes, yes, yes. But you still have to let us use the latrine somehow." Fei Shen said with a hypocritical smile, "I've already made it clear to you people. You want to come out, sure do so, but first write down the names of the officials who supplied you with the goods." The merchants were not natives of Zhongbo, and they still had to return to their hometowns after conducting their business, so how would they be willing to offend the local officials there? When they refused to write, Fei Shen continued to keep the door sealed. Out of options, they could only put up with the shame and pull down their pants to relieve themselves. It was still fine at the start, but it became unbearable later as the foul stench of urine permeated the courtyard. It was so overwhelming that they all covered their noses, and after 2 days, they finally caved in and confessed it all. Proud of his success, Fei Shen handed the name list to Shen Zequan, who wanted to use the list to investigate if there were any white scorpions among these local officials. With the transportation of such a large batch of goods east, they would have inevitably left a trail behind. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Having been starved into obedience, Yan Hiru was now sitting cross-legged, looking all well behaved as he stood trial. He waited, but seeing as Shen Zequan was still maintaining his silence, he asked, "Your lordship, aren't you going to interrogate me?" Shen Zequan set the list before Yan Hiru and asked, "All the names in here are your acquaintances, right? I'm a businessman, and businessmen like me have nothing whatsoever to do with the yamen." Yan Hiru tilted his head and finished looking through the name list. "They are just some drinking buddies. He province is the most convenient for you to do business if you so wish, but you set up a small mutual trade market in Dun province and brought the merchants from all over the realm here together." Having slept well last night, Shen Zequan was feeling so refreshed this morning that he did not even lose patience beating around the bush with Yan Hiru. "That's quite something you're up to." Yan Hiru blinked his eyes and said, "Even if I am up to something, they are all small tricks employed in the business world. Your lordship is truly the one who is circumspect and far-sighted. Let's not even bring up Huai province, Chse province, and Cha province, because it makes me eyes green with envy just to mention them. Now that Dun province is under your control, I shall make my livelihood under you. I'm willing and happy to be your younger brother. Why don't you make it clear first before talking about becoming sworn brothers?" Shen Zequan said. These local officials embezzled official goods and handed them to the merchants to be transported here, where they then sold the goods to the various Biancha tribes through you and used this as an opportunity to have the goods converted into money. You're truly a righteous one to be leading a bunch of people into making their fortune off state wealth. You are so smart. Yan Hiru actually started to account for his actions with his hands behind his back. That's right, that's exactly the case. It's through the tea trade that my Yan clan made its fortune. We had to spend mountains of silvers on bribing the local officials in order to find a means of subsistence under the Shi clan, but we could never have enough to fill this bottomless pit. These rats in charge of the local copper and iron mines had lucrative jobs where they could line their pockets to the brim. They only had to hold out their hands, and they would be able to fish up tens of thousands of silver. Anyone else would be tempted by this, so I decided I might as well join them in this endeavor. Yan Hira showed no sign of fear as he spoke to this point. All the business he had successively engaged in was all capital crimes punishable by execution if he had been reported to the authorities, but he had still gone ahead with them, and he had even become rather experienced at it. But I'm not the one who is providing Amuer with copper and iron. Yan Hira bared his canine tooth and smiled at Shenzhequan. Your lordship's interrogation of me today is because you've found out that these are all but small batches of goods that are completely incapable of meeting the requirements for the Scorpion's equipment, right? Shenzhequan did not respond. All the transactions that pass through my hands are recorded in black and white. Your lordship, having conducted your investigation to this date, should have already known that I'm telling the truth. Tired from sitting cross-legged, Yan Hira shifted a couple of times. I'll have you know that the person who went to Zongbo at the very start to deal in grain was Shi Hongxian. After Shi Hongxuan's death, all the Shi clan's shops fell into Shenzhequan's hands. The reason why he ordered Ji Qingqing to stay still in Juexi was to keep a tight watch on Shi Dan. He understood the Shi clan's current accounts like the back of his hand, and he was aware that Shi Hongxian was the one dealing in grains in Zongbo after the 4th year of Xian era, although it was directly resold to the Yan clan by the 5th year of Xian era. But despite turning over the Shi clan's accounts, Shenzhequan could not find any traces of copper and iron trading between Shi Hongxian and the various tribes of Biancha. Whether it was before or after the troops' defeat, Zongbo is the only place where you can transport goods to Amuer. Yan Hira said, even though Zongbo lost the ability to defend itself after the 4th year of Xian era, Amuer never made another move to invade again. By now, it should have already dawned on your lordship why this was the case, right? To transport goods. After the 4th year of the Xian era, not a single one of the provincial administration commissioners deployed to Zongbo from Chu capital lasted for long. Replacements were a frequent occurrence. Initially, Shenzhequan had thought that it was due to the severity of the banditry, but upon arrival in Zongbo, he quickly learned that this was not the case. At the very least, Lei Jingzhi had not been that influential at the beginning of the 4th year of the Xian era. Afterwards, he thought about how thorough Lianji had been in transferring Jiang Qingshan over to Chu capital after he became the Grand Secretary. He had Jiang Qingshan reside temporarily in Chu capital while waiting for the confirmation of his appointment then, and he had done it all so that he could send Jiang Qingshan down to Zongbo to change and turn the situation there around. I truly want to fraternize with your lordship. Yan Hira said, come on, let's do this together. He province was still transporting grains to Chu capital last year. Shenzhequan was in no hurry to answer. He looked at Yan Hira. You have money and grain. Why aren't you throwing in your lot with Xue Zaiozhuo? He is working in collaboration with an equally powerful ally in Juexi, Jiang Qingshan. There's no reason for him to let you do as you please. Yan Hira curbed his smile and said, I do wanted that, but this man only wants my head. Shenzhequan asked, is Xue Zaiozhuo checking your accounts? Not just mine. He's also looking into the Shi clan's accounts. Yan Hira said. This man is a fearsome one. He can't tolerate corruption, and he particularly doesn't care about sentimental ties at all. Yan Hira was loath to deal with people like Xue Zaiozhuo for a very simple reason: he was afraid of Xue Zaiozhuo. Back in the Xian era, when Xue Zaiozhuo was still serving as the chief supervising secretary in the Ministry of Revenue, Yan Hira had attempted to bribe Xue Zaiozhuo. However, it proved futile. Not only did it not work, Xue Zaiozhuo also almost traced it back to Yan Hira's shops at that time. The way in which Yan Hira formed his alliances was very simple, and that was to make everyone commit the crime together, giving the others a hold over himself at the same time he had a hold over the others. Shenzequan did not continue Yanhiru's thread of conversation. Upon seeing this, Yanhiru hurriedly craned his neck and said, "Do we have a deal? Let us draft up the rules and regulations, all right? Our respective shares in the mutual trade markets business in Hubei Province, Chse Province, Cha Province, and Libei in the future, along with the finer details of the business operations, are all open to negotiations. I can also deliver grains to Libei. The business aspect is easy to work out. As long as you can make up for the remaining winter clothes for the Libei armored cavalry before the 10th month." Shenzequan set the lid over the teacup. He province has to assume the responsibility of supplying the granaries in Cha Province and Dun Province at the start of spring next year. Can you establish yourself as king by the beginning of spring next year? You can't. In that case, my grains in He Province are still subject to requisition by Chu capital, and I'll have to transport them to Qidong as military provisions. The internal abacus in Yanhiru's mind was clicking away at high speed as he made his calculations. Qizuyan is the commander-in-chief of the Qidong 5 commanderies, and she's just over the banks of He Province. I don't have the troops to obstruct her. When the time comes and she doesn't receive the provisions as scheduled, she will come after me first and foremost. Never mind if it's just me, but if it implicates your lordship, then Chse Province will be beset with a crisis." Shenzequan was well aware that Yanhiru had his own schemes in mind, and so he asked, "So, your point is?" Yanhiru's eyes lit up. "How about this? When spring comes next year, the supply to the granaries of Cha Province and Dun Province will be jointly borne by He Province and Chse Province. I'll take the lion's share. Isn't that honorable enough of me? As for the portion of provisions owed to Qidong, I'll personally head to Bama Province via the water routes on the west side to purchase them. I have old acquaintances there. But the consumption of money to bribe my way through the checkpoints is too high. I have to figure out a way to make up for it over the winter. How about your lordship waive the tariffs for the merchants who have registered at the Yan clan's pawn shop and let them trade what they've amassed on hand at the mutual market in Libei? The Huiyan tribe has tea, which I can make a killing with if I buy and resell it at Yanji harbor." Having drunk his fill of tea, Shenzequan rose to his feet and made to leave without so much another word. "Ayya!" Yanhiru followed suit and said, "This won't do either? Your lordship, you're really a little stingy. Even if you want to shear my wool, you still have to let me fill up my stomach first." Shenzequan strode out of the door. It just so happened that Xiao Qiye was entering from the moon gate. Yanhiru simply fell to the ground and shamelessly created a scene. He hollered, "Don't go, Shengurgr. You're my dear kin brother. We can always discuss it over again, man." Shenzequan turned his head back to look askance at him. "It's all thanks to you that the bandits are running rampant in Cha Province, Dun Province, Fan Province, and Deng Province. Ever since the 5th year of the Xian era, the Yan clan has earned quite the fortune in Zongbo. I'm already giving you due respect by not closing down the Yan clan's shops for good. If anyone in the 2 prefectures of Cha Province and Dun Province die of starvation at the start of spring next year, I'll have your head for it." Feeling timid and apprehensive, Yanhiru cowered and shrunk his neck back like a little quail. As he lay on the ground, he saw Xiao Qiye's boots through the curtain Fei Sheng had lifted. He suddenly had a brainwave and shouted, "I still have a treasure." Xiao Qiye wrapped his umbrella on the step and said, "What treasure? Show this eye-opener to your second young master, too." Yanhiru promptly put on a smiling face and said ingratiatingly, "What second young master?" "It's second master. The second master liked pearls and jades back in Chu capital, right? I just so happened to newly acquire some good stuff at the start of autumn. As the saying goes, a precious sword ought to be gifted to a hero. In the same vein, precious gems are befitting of the second master. I've long wanted to pay a tribute of respect to the second master." Xiao Qiye had been wanting to make Shenzequan a few more earrings, so his interest was piqued upon hearing him. He had Fei Sheng continue holding up the curtain as he asked, "What kinds of goods?" Yan Hira knew that the relationship between Xiao Qiye and Shen Zequan was an intimate one. Shen Zequan had called Xiao Qiye my husband on Fuxian Peak. He could not convince Shen Zequan, but he could coax Xiao Qiye and make him happy, so he said, "When I get out, I'll get my men to deliver them to your residence for your amusement." Xiao Qiye was in quite the good mood. "A sensible one, you are." Yan Hira nodded his head as though he were pounding garlic. "The second master came with the prefectural lord on official business and has been staying on my property for quite a few days, and I still have yet to play the good host and entertain you. That makes me feel so ashamed." Xiao Qiye stood on the stairs, and Yan Hira secretly smacked his lips as he marveled just how tall the second young master Xiao was. Those shoulders were so broad one could simply roll around on them. "What did you call the prefectural lord earlier?" Xiao Qiye inquired. Yan Hira answered, "Shen Gurgr." "Toss him out." Xiao Qiye's tone abruptly went cold. "Let him clear his mind in the pond. To think he even forgot who his parents and siblings are." Fei Sheng leaned over to pick up Yan Hira and headed out. How was Yan Hira to know that Xiao Qiye was displeased again? He kicked his legs and said in a panic, I remember. Second master, don't toss me away. The wind was extremely cold out there. Yan Hira continued, there's something I still have yet to tell the second master. You. Fei Sheng had already dunked him into the water. *****. 5 days later, Shen Zequan departed for Chse province while Tan Taihu stayed in Dun province. His letter was delivered right at this time to the Bianjun commandery, where it was sent into the campground. Qi Zuyan stepped out of the tent. Upon seeing Qi Wei dismount from his horse, she asked, where did that letter come from? Qi Wei presented the letter and answered, from Zongbo. It's affixed with his private seal. Looks like Shen Zequan is doing rather well for himself in Zongbo. Qi Zuyan opened up the letter. To think he could still remain alive long enough to send a letter my way. Although Qi Wei had not looked at the letter without permission, he knew what its contents entailed. As Qi Zuyan was reading it, he said, it has not even been half a year since the establishment of the Chse province garrison troops, and yet they were able to defeat the Biancha cavalry in Dun province already. Their ability can't be underestimated. We have second young master Xiao to thank for this. Qi Zuyan handed the letter back to Qi Wei and looked at the overcast sky. The longer that the Prince of Libei keeps him in check and holds him back, the more zealous he will be when he steps onto the front lines in the future. Qi Wei said, after the new year, Chu capital will be urging you to head up north to suppress King Yi of Fan province. Qi Zuyan did not respond. She whistled towards the soldiers at the back and grabbed her overcoat. As she put it on, she changed the subject. Is my father well? Qi Wei followed Qi Zuyan and answered. As per your instructions, 5 men have been tasked to take turns to attend to him. His concubines in the residence are not allowed to go near him at all. They're not happy about this and have been making a ruckus over at the madam's residence day in and day out. Qi Zuyan had initially been about to get on her horse, but she stopped on hearing what he said. Third young Miss Hua didn't give them a lashing. Qi Wei scratched his head. She was raised as a princess and isn't like the rest of us. She's all soft-spoken when she talks to those concubines. She's truly a gentle one. Then she's got a good temper. Just thinking about those women in the inner courtyard gave Qi Zuyan a headache. She continued, the old man's got a stroke and they're treating it like he's about to breathe his last. They kept clamoring all day long about splitting the family properties, even harping over that golden chamber pot of his. Qi Wei said, they're scared of you. Qi Zuyan was irate. Did I not feed them? Qi Wei replied awkwardly, well, you've been watching their accounts and deducting their rouge allowance. Qi Zuyan had nothing to say to that. This was a rotten debt. For the past few years, Qi Zuyan had drained her personal funds empty in order to make up for the shortfall in the military salaries and provisions of the Qidong's garrison troops. The remaining 4 camps could rely on their garrison troops to cultivate the lands to mitigate this burden, and the granaries were in abundance in all the years there was no war. But the Bianjun commandery could not do the same. Lu Guangbai had emptied out his family assets for the troops in Bianjun, as had Qi Zuyan with her dowry. When the military provisions for the Bianjun commandery were discovered to be rotten half a year ago, Qi Zuyan had borrowed money from merchants to make up for the difference. She had initially saved enough to pay off the debt, but then the wedding between Hua and Qi clans took place soon after, and to marry Hua Xianji into the family, the Qi clan's finances had been utterly exhausted. The amount of money these concubines spent every month was alarming. Just the amount spent on rouges and powders amounted to a couple tens of thousands of taels. By making the decision to deduct this amount, Qi Zuyan might as well have stirred the hornet's nest. She had riled her father's concubines into a sobbing mess in the rear courtyard then, all baying to complain to Qi Shiu. Qi Wei knew of Qi Zuyan's troubles, and spoke up. "What if we discussed it with the madam? Her dowry." Qi Zuyan cast a swift glance over, and Qi Wei, aware that he had spoken out of turn, immediately sank to his knees. Without looking at Qi Wei again, Qi Zuyan got onto the horse. "Deploy Hong Ying back, say it's on my order. If anyone dares to get rough with third young Miss Hua, tell Hong Ying not to stand on ceremony with them and just have them tied up and sent over directly to me. She did not marry far away to Qidong to help me make up for the deficit or to become the punching bag of my father's concubines. She has Qi Shiu's name plastered all over her, and she is the rightful madam of Qidong that I traversed 800 li to welcome. Bullying her is akin to bullying my father, and bullying my father equates to bullying me. So, on that note, don't you dare have any designs on the little maiden, you hear me?" End chapter. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 183, Inseparable as Fish to Water. Ji Gang was feeling lonely at home with Shen Zequan far away on his trip and Ding Tao and Li Xiong both absent. All he could do every day was to brew some tea and take a stroll with his bird. His culinary skills were exemplary, so he took care of Yao Wenyu for Shen Zequan. He was nothing if not meticulous, and in half a month, the color began to return to Yao Wenyu's complexion. When the weather was fine, Qiao Tianya would accompany Yao Wenyu out to bask in the sunlight. He had collected quite the number of old books, which Yao Wenyu read in the courtyard. As Yao Wenyu's mobility was limited, Qiao Tianya helped him wash up before bed every night. But there was one occasion where Qiao Tianya noticed the reddened tips of Yao Wenyu's ears while wiping him down and came to the realization that the latter had never looked him in the eyes in the bathhouse. It was only during such a time that Qiao Tianya managed to see again that unpolished jade Yuanzhou from the 4th month in spring. They did not actually converse much. Besides voicing his thoughts during the discussions, Yao Wenyu spent his usual time sitting in idleness. He kept vigil by the wiki board, contemplating his moves every day. It was not uncommon for him to hold onto a book for an entire day, with the page he was on in the morning still the same page when he closed the book at night. Sleep did not come easy for him. Both his legs were not wholly numb. Instead, they hurt every single moment. It was only when Qiao Tianya was playing the guqin that he would feel a bit better. Sleeping to the murmurings of the guqin felt to Yao Wenyu as though he were sitting in the drizzle with his eyes closed. Qiao Tianya cut back a lot on his drinking nowadays, and he had shaved his stubble clean. He was spending even more time lying outstretched in his chair with his arms behind his head, staring out of the window in a daze. From his occasional observations of him, Yao Wenyu found that the way Qiao Tianya was set against the snowy mountains and dense fog beyond the window made him appear so very tranquil. It was as if all the tempestuous vicissitudes of the martial fraternity had been banished from his memory, turning him from a vagabond wanderer into the pine beneath the moon. Yao Wenyu had never addressed him by the name of Qiao Tianya. Qiao Tianya was someone who needed a refuge where he could brush the wanderlust off himself. He laughed and cursed in his state of intoxication, executing his swordplay as he pleased and to his heart's content, and when he sobered up, he was a solitary shadow from which an aura of frost emanated. They seemed to be like two broken pieces of jade that had encountered each other to mutually make up for what the other lacked, and, in doing so, pieced back together those bygone days of free-spiritedness. ******. Fan province has been a lot quieter lately. Gao Zhongxiang sat by the fire and warmed his hands. King Yi should have already gotten the news about Dun province. He must be terribly on edge now. The army has to pass by the north of Fan province on their return journey. It's only natural for King Yi to be afraid given how close the army is. Zhou Gui said as he sipped his hot tea. I can't understand. Gao Zhongxiang said. Fan province is surrounded by enemies on all sides. King Yi's haste to rebel and establish himself under his own banner seems more like he's in a rush to court death. King Yi claimed himself to be the great progeny of Fan province. He not only renovated the original yamen of Fan province but also brazenly scoured for beauties in Fan province in the guise of choosing his consorts. Zhou Gui lamented. Rather than say he wants to join in the fight for the imperial throne, you might as well say he just wanted to make merry while he can. When King Yi first established himself, he had not expected Shenzhen to move that quickly. Hui province, Chse province, and Cha province severed all possibilities of him expanding his territory northwest. He was not as tough as Shenzhen and he did not have that many talents under his command as Shen Zequan did. He initially rose in rebellion because he could no longer put up with the bandits. The people he had led were all his neighbors. At present, the military commander he had appointed in Fan province was a butcher, and his civil officials were all elderly gentlemen. All they petitioned about during the daily court sessions were stuff like who snatched whose donkey and who committed adultery with whose husband. Going by what the prefectural lord said, Gao Zhongxiang piped up. King Yi cannot fall for the time being. We have to keep him alive until next year. King Yi knows he is too powerless to resist, that's why he attempted to seek Lei Jing's help. But now that Lei Jing is already dead, he is left high and dry. He ought to be scared to death now. King Yi is not an iron shield after all. Zhou Gui said. We have to think of another way to deal with Qizuyan. Yuan Zhou, what are your views on this? Yao Wenyu snapped back to his senses. With the hot tea still in hand, he said, my guess is that Qizuyan's delay in deploying troops to crush the rebels in Zongbo is not merely because of Lu Guangbai's desertion. Zhou Gui blurted out a sound of surprise and asked, do you mean to say that there's another reason for it? During the wedding between the Hua and Qi clan, Xiao Shi's consort personally made a trip to Qidong to deliver gifts for the purpose of taking her father back. Qizuyan's willingness to risk the wrath of Chu capital to protect Lu Pinjian was not just for personal reasons but also to show Libei her stance. Warmth returned to Yao Wenyu's fingers. If Qizuyan obeys Chu capital's command and heads north to quell the rebels in Zongbo, then she will have to face two battlefronts alone going by the current territories. Should Chu capital forcibly order her to attack Libei once she recovers Zongbo, then the battleground in the north will be precipitated into crisis. The moment the armored cavalry of Libei falls apart, she will become the last line of defense in the east. All her troops on hand will have to be deployed into battle, and her geographical advantage in Qidong will vanish. When the time comes, all she can do is to grit her teeth and push on. Realization struck Gao Zhongxiang then and he said, if it comes to that, then even if Qizuyan is able to defeat Amuir in the end, she would not have the strength and resources left to act as a counterbalance to Chu capital. Yao Wenyu nodded. The Qidong garrison troops is what Qizuyan is counting on. Without these troops, Chu capital will be able to replace her easily. For a long time, Zhou Gui could not snap out of his shock. In the end, he could only say, the commander-in-chief is indeed far-sighted. Yuan Zhou, how did you come to that conjecture? Before the 8th month, when the prefectural lord was still here, we all thought that Qi Ziyan would come. It was only after the wedding between Hua and Qi clans that I made that inference. Yao Wenyu said. Before the wedding, the commander-in-chief did not immediately head north under the pretext that there was no one to guard the Bianjun commandery, which in turn allowed the marquis to return to Libei. The Empress Dowager's sending of Han Cheng to escort the bride to the groom's residence was, in part, also meant to press Qi Ziyan into action. But after the wedding, the commander-in-chief remained stationed in Bianjun without making so much as a move. The Empress Dowager wanted to convince Qi Ziyan to deploy her troops, but she did not have enough bargaining chips in her hands. Her last trump card was Hua Xianji, and she had already shown her hand, but as things played out, Qi Xiu had a stroke and this card of hers was as good as forfeited. Everyone under the Empress Dowager's command was going to be secretly gnashing their teeth in resentment over the fact that Qi Ziyan was not a man. They were still chatting around the fire when Xiao Tianya suddenly lifted the curtain and announced, "The prefectural lord is back." Zhou Gui and Gao Zhongxiang promptly rose to their feet. Gao Zhongxiang wanted to push the wheelchair for Yao Wenyu, but he was a step too slow. Xiao Tianya beat him to it and took over the wheelchair with natural ease to push Yao Wenyu out through the curtain that had been lifted for them. ******. Fei Sheng took extreme care on the road, but the 9th month was just right around the corner, and Shen Zequan could not avoid the ambush of the cold even when he was huddled up against Xiao Qi. He fell ill again, this time with a fever so high it seemed to burn away whatever bit of composure he had possessed back in Dun Province. The recruitment for the Dun Province garrison troops was of utmost importance, and the advisors had all been waiting in the study for a day. Even while lying in bed, Shen Zequan was still mulling over the matter. "Hand the accounts from Dun Province over to Yuanzhou." With his cheeks slightly flushed and palm over his eyes, Shen Zequan said in the dim light. "Have Changfeng assist. Come up with an estimate of the military expenses for Dun Province tonight and send it over to Tantaihu in 2 days at the latest." Blocking him, Xiao Qi combed his fingers through Shen Zequan's slightly damp hair to brush it aside. He said in a hushed tone, "I've got it all in mind." Shen Zequan did not wish for Xiao Qi to leave, but the matter on hand was pressing, and the Bianchi cavalry would remain a menace to them with the situation in Duan province still unclear. It was imperative that there would be no delays to the establishment of Dun province's defenses. He glanced at Xiao Qi with half-lidded eyes and said, "Tell Xiao Tianya about the armed guard. He'll know what to do." Xiao Qi hummed an acknowledgement in reply and watched as Shen Zequan closed his eyes. He waited a moment for the latter's breathing to become steady before getting up to change his clothes and leave. When he walked down the stairs, he said to Fei Sheng, "Wake the prefectural lord up when the medicine is ready. Make sure he finishes it." Even after returning to their residence, Shen Zequan's medicine was still decocted under Fei Sheng's watchful eyes. Fei Sheng strode a few steps with Xiao Qi and nodded his head in acknowledgement. "If the prefectural lord is awake when Shifu comes, invite him in. If not, then ask him to head back first." Chen Yang came over to drape the cloak over Xiao Qi. While Xiao Qi was putting it on, he said, "If Shifu asks about what happened in Dun province, omit the part about Fuxian Peak. I'll tell Shifu about it myself afterward." Xiao Qi stood still and looked at the sky. "I'll be back before the hour of high." He was still speaking even as he was striding out. "Remember to prepare candies when the medicine is ready. It's also fine to swap it for honeyed water." He had already walked off even before the words had fully left his mouth. Xiao Qi arrived at the study, and everyone stood to pay their obeisances, but he had already taken his seat, skipping all the formalities. As Yao Wenyu looked over the account books of the Yan clan and Dun province, Kong Ling updated him with a detailed account of the situation. Not a single one of the advisors dared to smoke their pipes today as they sat, all prim and proper. The Marquis' oppressive aura overwhelmed them all, keeping them from lifting their heads, and their reports were all concise and comprehensive. They did not even dare to overdo the flattery. The situation in Dun province was complicated, with the key issue lay in its distance from Tse province, along with the fact that Fan province was between them. As a result, many matters had to be discussed in detail. Zhou Gui initially assumed that Xiao Qiye would not be as familiar with the topography of Zongbo as Shen Zequan was, and had someone present a map. Unexpectedly, Xiao Qiye had Zongbo's map clearly imprinted in his mind from all those times he had been making the rounds of transporting military supplies in Libei, and he did not make a single mistake during the conversation that anyone could find fault with. They lit lamps in the study to discuss official business, while Shen Zequan alternated between consciousness and sleep within the room. Shen Zequan woke up when he heard Fei Shen bringing in the medicine. He drank the medicine without even popping a candy this time and fell back asleep. Fei Shen closed the door and had the people serving in the courtyard to change their shoes. The maidservants, having also taken off their pendants and hairpins, made no sound as they walked. Perhaps it was because of the silence that Shen Zequan surprisingly slept for a long time. When he woke up again, he heard movement outside the door and thought Xiao Qiye had returned. But Xiao Qiye never came in, and Shen Zequan fell asleep again. In the middle of night, he was woken up by the scalding heat, only to find Xiao Qiye sleeping soundly on top of him. Unable to move, Shen Zequan remained pinned under him until he was all drenched in sweat. It was only near daybreak that he felt a little more rejuvenated. Shen Zequan feebly put his hand on Xiao Qiye's back, only to come into contact with a section of gauze. All traces of sleep promptly deserted him. Wide awake now, he wanted to get up to take a look, but Xiao Qiye pressed him back into place. Xiao Qiye buried his face and said in a heavy voice, "Getting water." Shen Zequan felt along the bandage for a while, his alarm intensifying the more he touched. Xiao Qiye caught Shen Zequan's hand to stop him from groping blindly. "Watch where you are pressing. It hurts." Both men looked at each other for a moment, and Xiao Qiye suddenly clasped his arms around Shen Zequan, preventing the latter from moving. Shen Zequan stared at Xiao Qiye and drawled, "Didn't I say not to ask for a lashing?" His illness had rendered him all thin and sallow, and his voice was hoarse. He looked as if his eyes were going to redden the next instant as he looked at Xiao Qiye in this way. After the incident in Cha province the last time, Xiao Qiye had told Ji Gang to whip him once for each time Shen Zequan got hurt. Shen Zequan had coaxed him back in Dun province, and he had gotten severely punished for it. He thought Xiao Qiye would let it drop. But who would have known that Xiao Qiye would act so quickly upon returning? In the short amount of time that Shen Zequan had taken a nap, Xiao Qiye had already received his whipping. Xiao Qiye bumped his forehead against Shen Zequan's and stuck close to him. Sensing that his fever had receded, he lazily uttered a hum. He remained in this way with his shoulder and arm bare, his back bandaged with several layers of gauze. Xiao Qiye had injured his right arm when he faced up against Hassan at the Tudalong banner, and the wounds had left scars behind, and now, new scars crisscrossed with the old, making them tingle with numbness and pain. The lashings pained Shen Zequan. Just touching that gauze alone hurt him so much that his fingers curled. Xiao Qiye remained close to him, making him breathless for air. He hated Xiao Qiye to death. But as he lay here, he only wanted to repeat over and over again, how much he regretted it now. ******. Ding Tao sat in low spirits under the eaves playing cat's cradle with Li Xiong. Seeing as Ji Gang had been standing under the eaves for an hour, he tugged at the corner of Ji Gang's clothes and asked, "Grandpa, why don't you sit?" Ji Gang's mind was still wandering as he asked Ding Tao, "Did I hit too hard?" Ding Tao comforted him. "Master was the one who made the request and forced you into it. You could do nothing about it either." Ji Gang felt ill at ease as he sat down. After a while, he stood up and said, "I'd best go get some ointment." Fei Shen was originally waiting on the veranda. Upon seeing Ji Gang's approach, he hurried over to greet him. Ji Gang gazed at the principal room, looking as though he wanted to say something only to swallow his words back down. He handed the ointment to Fei Sheng and after thinking for a moment, asked, was the Marquis also staying together with Lanzhou when they were on official business in Dun province? Remembering Xiao Qiye's instructions, Fei Sheng maintained his composure and said, yes. The Marquis and Master are living examples of what the stories described as confidants. They are like fish and water, inseparable from one another. Seeing how frank and unperturbed Fei Sheng was, Ji Gang felt that it was him who had read too much into it. As they said, bosom friends were hard to find. Moreover, Lanzhou and Xiao Er had gone through life and death together. For them to be far closer than the norm was only to be, he could not go on thinking any further. Somehow, he still felt that something was not quite right. But Ji Gang was reluctant to veer his thoughts into another direction, unwilling as he was to make conjectures about Shen Zequan on these matters. They had gone to propose marriage for Jimu when Jimu was still around, and back then, Shen Zequan had said that he also wanted to marry a wife in the future. Consequently, Hua Pingting went scouting for quite a number of maidens. They were all poor, humble families in the neighborhood who stayed close by. Shen Zequan only had to like one of them, and they would have gone to call on the family for a visit. Shifu. Fei Sheng called out tentatively. Ji Gang placed his hands behind his back and said, continue to keep watch. I'll come again later. Ji Gang wanted to have a talk with Xiao Qiye again, but Xiao Qiye was too busy. The latter seemed to be in a never-ending rush as he went back and forth between the residence and Zhou's residence. The dust in Dun province had only just settled when the letter from Libei came. Once Shen Zequan recovered from his illness, Xiao Qiye would have to depart for Bianbo camp. The winter coats will arrive in Libei in the 9th month. You can just dispatch someone to assist at the Bianbo camp. Shen Zequan secured the arm guard for Xiao Qiye and asked, is it snowing heavily in Libei? Intermittently, I guess. Xiao Qiye answered. It's often sleet at present. The maintenance of the bridle paths is of utmost importance. We have to ensure that the paths run smoothly and unobstructed by the time heavy snow descends in the 11th month. Tell His Lordship that we have already secured the military provisions for the beginning of spring next year. Shen Zequan's hand slid from the arm guard to Xiao Qiye's palm. He looked up at the latter and said, the construction of the bridle path from Dun province to Bianbo camp will also start next year. They wanted to connect Zongbo and Libei together so that Bianbo camp had direct access to Tse province and Dun province. The information coming from Dun province had to be fast and up to date. Xiao Qiye might not be able to return in the next 2 months. He had to keep an eye on Libei's territory at all times. In addition, he also had to be precise in his calculations of the reserves of supplies on the battleground, lest heavy snow unexpectedly collapse the paths and cut off access, and the lack of supplies ended up causing those on the battlefield to be caught up in an arduous battle. If Ding Tao gets too mischievous, send him back to dying. Eldest sister-in-law can deal with him. As Xiao Qiye spoke, he lowered his head and led Shen Zequan with both hands to step on both of his own feet. Then he clasped him by the back of his head and stood with him to exchange a kiss. The fabric of their clothes chafed against one another. Shen Zequan propped himself against Xiao Qiye's arms and melted away into his scent. Xiao Qiye liked the way Shen Zequan tilted his head up like this. This was him seeking him out, and all that pervaded the air when they touched was desire born out of love. He bore all of Shen Zequan's weight, he was capable of picking up Shen Zequan with ease. It was only a kiss to begin with, but he did not let go as they entwined together intimately amidst the interweaving of their breaths. I've already asked eldest sister-in-law to make preparations. Xiao Qiye said, Chen Yang will be sent over before the new year to take you and Shifu to dying. Shen Zequan's breathing had grown ragged from the kiss. I'll prepare a gift. Silly Lanzhou. Xiao Qiye cupped Shen Zequan and kissed him with even more intensity. Xiao Qiye came in a hurry and left in a hurry, too. On this overcast day shrouded in fog in Tse province, he braved the rain and headed north even as he bore those wounds he had received from the lashings. All was calm and peaceful for the time being in the three prefectures of Zhongbo. Xiaoqi Ye stationed Tantaihu in Dun province, leaving the latter as a bulwark for Shenzhequan. Chse province entered a brief period of respite, and Shenzhequan seemed to have reigned in his brilliance and gone into a state of dormancy. But very quickly, Shuiziuzhuo, who was far away in Chu capital, came to learn just how formidable this round of inactivity was. During the Hanyi festival in the 10th month, Cha province hosted a banquet with funding from the Yan clan and invited all the talents in the world over regardless of whether the person was a distinguished man from the countryside or a reclusive statesman in a bustling city. As long as they were academically accomplished, they would all receive the invitation to participate in the intellectual discourse between the literati. If it had been a nobody, he naturally would not have stirred up a storm. But this time, it took less than 3 days for the ox carts and boats to set out in full force as all the virtuous and wise talents flocked to their destination. For the one who had sent the invitation was a man named Yao Wenyu. End chapter. Note: Hanyi festival is a festive occasion when one pays tribute to the deceased and worship their ancestors.